Upload is strong. No frame drops. That's a good start. That's a pretty good start. So we'll go ahead and dive into it. Hello, I'm EnviroBoy. This is my channel. And we're going to do some writing. I'm starting a little bit late, but what else is new? I can't seem to get myself to... Because what it is like I always think like, oh, it's 11:30, I need to do my stream. And then I sit down and like I never really think about the fact that it takes a few minutes to get things all set up, so. But oh well, I'm here. Doesn't matter. I mean, the good news is it's not like I'm getting paid for this, so it's not like I'm disappointing shareholders or some bullshit like that. I can do whatever the hell I want. It's my channel, back off. Anywho, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into it. No sense in just sitting around waiting for things to happen and all that crap. So, let's see here. We, last time, finished up all of our shops for our wonderful city of Novotrokladny. Oh, shoot, there's one thing I didn't do. Oh, shoot, hold on. We didn't. Because we still have to name our shop. And we have to add our thing. So we had our alchemy shop. That was run by our Loxodon grandma. That's right. We have to come up with a name for the shop. I can't believe we forgot to do that. We have to think of something sweet and wholesome. I want to I almost want there to be a hint about her past, because remember with her, we gave her that history that past of you know, like she was a healer for a town that got ravaged by the unhinging, went on her own pilgrimage through Mount Celestia, and sort of was gifted immortality. And so now uses that gift in order to make sure that she helps as many people as possible. So I almost want to include some sort of like callback to that in the title. Like she would do that almost like as a little like see if they figure it out type of thing. You know what I mean? So I want to try and achieve that with the title. Say something that's like not overtly obviously there, but it's like if someone knew her history, they'd be like, oh, okay, that shot makes sense. So I almost want to call it like Celestial Health and Wellness or something like that. I kind of want to do that because that's like really what she tries to gear it towards. Celestial Health and Wellness. And we'll call that the Alchemy Shop. I kind of like that. I like that. Alright, hold on. So we're just going to copy a link to the page, come up here, and then we just got to... There. Okay, now we are finished with all the shops. Damn it, I failed at my goal yesterday. My goal yesterday was to be finished with all the shops, and I thought I was, but I wasn't. I failed. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Anywho, we finished that up yesterday, which is awesome. It's kind of a drawn-out process going through the shops, but it's a super necessary one. I say it all the time, but when you're trying to world build and write like a campaign, one of the most important things that you can do is really one of the most important things you can do is take the time to put that background information in there. You know, put those basic world building foundational items. You know, the places that your players are going to visit all the time, places that you know your players are going to need at some point in time. So some of the most important things to put in there. And so, yeah, so we got those, and I feel good about having those. So now, really, I mean, honestly, at that point in time, so we've got our world map, our regional map, we've got our city, we know our general, here, we'll go here, we know our general campaign main goals and everything. So really the only thing that's left, we made all of our random tables, right? All of our random encounter tables for traveling. So we have all this foundational baseline stuff, which means that all we really have left is to make dungeons and specific missions and like really kind of start slowly piecing together the details of this campaign. And that's like the best part about having finished up all of these baseline background things that we need to have, is we've established that we've got all that stuff in place, we've got all that stuff established. So now all we have left to do is just make the campaign, and everything else is taken care of. So when the campaign is done, the whole thing is done. And that's one of the best parts of it, right? It's one of the best parts of doing all that stuff up front. And I feel like it's kind of an underrated and underappreciated thing to put in that legwork early, so that way you can really get to the fun, exciting stuff of designing dungeons with puzzles and monsters and traps and all the different crap and everything like that. Now that we've got our stuff organized, we're good to go. So what I want to do is, so we've got our main campaign steps, and we've set out about 7 steps here. I want to review this stuff, and I want to bring that to 10 discrete campaign events, is what I want to do, because the way I like to do these things, and anyone who watched my stream before I started this project really and saw me designing dungeons kind of know that this is what I like to do. I like to design a dungeon, like almost like a mega dungeon of sorts, for each level that the players are going to be at. And so I always try to have a span of about 10 levels per campaign, and like the idea is that you can really start and stop at any level base as long as you have the interval of 10 the way I do it. But it really functionally it ends up being you have your beginner campaigns and your advanced campaigns. So it's like you get up to level 10 as the beginners, and then I'll spit at them a hook that then takes them to the advanced campaign, or players just start wanting to start with some high-level characters and you throw them into one of the advanced campaigns, whatever. So knowing that we are going to do that, and we're starting at level 1 and going to level 10, I want to design one dungeon, like a dungeon that's 4 players at level 1, 4 players at level 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 4 players at level 10, which is going to be our final, our final coup de grace. Coup de grace isn't really the right, it's pièce de résistance. It's more the turn of phrase that I'm looking for there. But that'll be our final thing, and that'll bring them up to level 11, which will then set those characters up for an advanced campaign if players choose to continue with them. That's the idea. So what I want to do is I want to just take a minute here and get exactly 10 story beats, so to speak, in place, so that way then we can just design the 10 levels, because we've kind of got the ideas. You see, we only have 7 steps, including we have a step 1, which I think, if I'm just kind of glancing at it, I haven't actually read over this stuff yet, is kind of where I want it to start, and 7 is exactly where I want it to end, right? So we really just need to add 3 more steps in here in some way, shape, or form, and we need to make some dungeons that way. So I'm going to start with that, and then that should not take us the entire stream. So then after that, we're going to start actually working on a dungeon, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be so much fun. I'm excited to start making some dungeons and start giving some real robust filler to this campaign. So let's see here. So let's just take a look. So I know with our main goals, we have our, we kind of talked about some different approaches that players could take. Peaceful to help Eodris, confrontational, and then all of the different keys and stuff like that. So as far as the different routes I can take, the more I ruminate on it, the more I realize we don't really need to plan for that per se, other than really our final step here, right? our final step is to have them either try to, enter the shrine, go to the shrine to, fight Eodris himself, or go to the shrine to help Eodris. Either way. So we don't have a whole lot of contingencies we have to do other than, other than the final thing, having Eodris get in the way. Possibly. You just basically design 2 final bosses and it's no big deal. So I still think that's a good idea. So let's see here. So what did we write here? So there's a shrine in the Goldenwind Plains that is said to possess the Mirror of Knowledge that can play back any scene in history, so long as the viewer knows how to summon it. Eodris wants access to this shrine so that he may learn from the past about historic mistakes. Right, exactly. So it's like with this item in play, it's a really strong item, and so I imagine it'll turn into is, are players willing to just let that go to Eodris? Or are they going to insist upon taking it for themselves? That's going to be kind of the determining factor. But either way, I think it's going to be pretty easy to keep the campaign the same, because really either they can be getting the keys for Eodris or getting the keys for themselves, because one way or another they're going to have to do that. And what I'm thinking we can do with that item is, if they're kind of like, well, we don't want to help Eodris, but we also don't care about the mirror ourselves, is then, they'll have to figure out how to fight a dragon, and then the best thing to do will be to tell them, like, all right, well, if you want to fight a dragon, you'll probably have to go back to the city and talk to a scholar, at which point the scholar will say, especially if they tell them about the item, the scholar will be like, well, that's your best way to figure out how to kill a dragon. Go find a place in which it was done beforehand. I don't know how to kill a dragon. And you can just kind of like throw them into doing this campaign, and then it turns into, really the story is kind of like, how do they approach this and what is their goal while doing this? Like, what's their ultimate purpose for doing this? So it's kind of railroady, right? Where it's like, here's your steps, so on and so forth. But anyway, enough rambling about that. So peaceful, confrontational, both routes take players to the same spots, but depending on the route, they will encounter different enemies and attitudes. Again, primarily that takes place in the last one. As far as the Drow and Duergar go, it's really up to them whether or not they want to try and like recruit them, be confrontational with them, whatever. It doesn't really change the fact that ultimately the players are going to want to get those keys. So we have the 4 keys, one with Duergar, one with Drow, one with the Giants, and then one in the lake. Those are sort of the different key locations there. We had 4 keys, and then 2 possible uses for each dungeons. And so that's the other thing that we can do, is if players decide to abandon the key, then you, instead of the key in the dungeon, just throw the dungeon some sort of artifact that's important to each of these individuals, so that they have to go and get that thing to prove their worth or whatever to the Giants and the Drow and whatever, so that they'll help fight Eodris and yada yada, all that kind of stuff. Blah blah blah. Side goals. This was just talking about how there's like different side missions and stuff that the different races will be concerned about. There's different politics and stuff happening, so we've kind of got that mentioned in there. So let's see here. So campaign steps. This is kind of the important part. Players first encounter Eodris. Players are part of the expedition crew when it is approached by Eodris. Dean will do a lot of yes and role play, but usher players towards one of 2 options based on their attitudes to it all. Eodris can explain about the legend of the Hall of Wisdom and his desire to have it unlocked. Will agree to let the expedition continue if players can get him into the hall, or he will threaten to kill everyone as part of the expedition if they continue their work. If this happens, Scholarback and Novitzokladny will instead give players the legend of the items that weaken the dragons. So we kind of had that, and I actually kind of want to abandon that one. I want to change this up, but I actually want to change up the campaign steps a little bit here. So this one is not quite as on par with what I wanted, because here's what I've thought of. Oops, I'll do that here. So what I've actually thought of would be a fun way to handle this is, for level 1, you know, because you want to think about it, engaging new players at this point in time. And one of the best ways to do that, especially when there are players that have created these new characters with new weapons and magical powers and stuff, and they're excited to like dig into using these characters and everything. So I kind of want to take the Tyranny of Dragons approach and throw them into a scenario in which they're helping the expedition. Oh, wait, hold on. Doesn't seem to be picking it up. Give it a second. It's going to get louder. Hold on a second. I want to see if the mic picks this up. Not quite. Okay. This is the maximum. They're doing the tornado warning tests the first Friday of the month. So they're doing their tornado warning tests, and I heard the siren going, and it's the siren, like, it's literally a block away from my house or my apartment. The only thing stopping it from being ear splitting, because it actually too, my windows face almost directly at it, and so the only thing really stopping it from being completely ear splitting is the fact that there are a lot of tall trees between me and it, which is just like the most merciful bit of luck that I could have. Those things are damn loud if you're close to them. I made the mistake of going out for a walk one Friday. It was last summer, because you know there's like that was in the height of everything being shut down. There was literally nothing to do but like walk outside. So I was going for a walk on a Friday afternoon, right around now, because they do it at noon. And like I was right next to the post. I am not joking when I say I was right next to the post when the thing started going off. Oh man, I thought I popped an eardrum. I was uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. Anyway, back to what I'm working on here. So, for step 1, what I want to do is I actually do want to try and design the dungeon to be them with the expedition crew as they come upon a particularly dangerous stretch of area here. And it's going to be up to the players to assist it. And what I'm thinking we can do, I'm thinking we can keep it pretty standard and straightforward here, and have it be like the expedition crew comes upon a cave, and the leader of the expedition kind of says like, all right, we need a handful of people to go explore this cave. And then he'll like just sort of like by pure happenstance, I mean for him it'll be random, and he'll just select the individuals, the players, and say like, okay, you and you guys go check out that cave. We'll hold down the fort out here, make sure nothing sneaks up on you. If you have any issue, this is the signal, blah 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 blah, or whatever, and they can go in. And so what I'm thinking is have them go in there to explore and empty out the cave, and there'll be monsters and some treasures and stuff that they can find in this cave. And then once they feel satisfied and want to come out, like as soon as they start talking about coming out, then the DM can be like, oh, convenient timing. Like, we're opening up with a lot of convenient timing, but like I say, with this being a beginner's campaign of sorts that's starting at level 1, there's a very good chance that this is something that you'll use for a bunch of new players. So your best bet is to go ahead and be a little, you know, overly convenient, a little railroady with these new players for the sake of giving them that strong opener that's going to hook them into playing the game, right? You know, if you have a bunch of experienced players, you can kind of get away with a more realistic start of not like having all of the most convenient timing, like, oh, the things are happening as soon as you guys decide to leave. You know, but with new players, it's like, yeah, you do that. You kind of lean into the game mechanics a little heavy to sell the game, right? And let them have fun with their characters and stuff. So what I'm thinking here is we'll do for step 1, players are part of the exploration, or the route scouting expedition. Whoops. For the trade route mapping efforts. The expedition crew comes upon a cave not far from the intended pathway. Players are selected, and we'll put it in quotes, selected, quote, at random. Players are selected at random by the expedition. Actually, and just to make sure it's clear, actually, I'm going to say all players are selected at random. So it's like the random is like from the expedition leader's perspective, where he's got like a crew of 15 people and he's only going to send like 5 of them into this cave. Well, the rest hold down the fort outside to make sure that, you know, there's no traps or anything waiting to try and ambush them when they do enter the cave, so on and so forth. So all players are selected at random by the expedition leader, and I'm gonna put in brackets here. I'm gonna put in brackets. Whoops, that's not at all what I wanted to have happen. Need NPC. So, because I do want to, I want to have like an actual named NPC, because the expedition leader will probably be an important character for the most part. I'll probably interact with them a fair bit, so that's a worthwhile NPC to make, but I don't want to do that at this exact moment. All players are selected at random by the expedition leader to scout the cave interior and make sure it's not home to anything big and dangerous, or hiding an interplanar tear. Right, because like that's the big issue in this world, is there's all those tears between the like mortal and non-mortal realms and all that kind of stuff. Hold on a second. Wait, hold on, I need to do something. My apologies, give me a second. As always, I'm juggling like 8 million things, so you know, what else is new in life, huh? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, you know, so that's the excuse for having them go through the cave. The cave is a level 1 dungeon that will provide a lot of simple treasures, fun traps, we'll say traps aren't really fun. Fun puzzles, obvious traps, and easy enemies. So it's like we're wow, and enemies. There we go. So like we're trying to set up. This is like the first dungeon that that the players are really gonna be encountering, and they're gonna be at level 1. So it's like they're super squishy and unlikely to survive particularly well. So we want to make sure that we fill this with fun things for new players to enjoy, get a good sampling of all the different things they can encounter, and it'll be great. It'll be great. Like I say, we're with this first dungeon trying to hook them in here. So we've got that, and then what we'll say is, as soon as players discuss leaving the cave, DM should interrupt by saying there are sounds of a commotion coming from outside. Players will exit the cave to see that a golden scaled dragon, and remember we're calling it a golden dragon, but we're actually going to use the stats of, I think it was like a bronze dragon or something. I've got it all written down. We're going to call it a golden just because thematically that makes more sense, but functionally I like the powers of the brass dragon better. Is brass or bronze, I can't remember. Is one of them other not quite gold shiny ones. But we're gonna call it a gold one, just because I like to play fast and loose with these rules, for the sake of creating a more thematic encounter and experience for players. But I see that a golden scaled dragon is flying overhead and scaring the poo out of the rest of the expedition. Let's see here. This story beat will conclude with a discussion with Eodris, to convey with players, how do I want to say this? To give players their campaign of finding the keys, to the temple. Because I'm willing to bet, even though ultimately once players are up to like level 10 or level 11, whatever they do finally end up getting to by the time they're there, because we're going to offer more opportunities. There's going to be there's between traveling, between the dungeons, between some side missions that we're going to throw in there, there's going to be more than ample experience points for players to surpass the level 10, level 11 threshold that this campaign has. But even if they're only at level 10 by the time they face Eodris, it's meant to be that they can handle him. I think I remember looking, we're only going to use the adult dragon, not the ancient dragon stat block. So even though they can fight him, I'm willing to bet that at level 1 with a dragon the size of a house, players are going to feel inclined to take his offer to help him. They don't have to, and that's why we're going to have those contingency plans, because if you're doing this with advanced players, they might do exactly that. They might do exactly, no, I don't want to work with you, and like be buttheads about it. So we're going to be prepared for that. But I really think players are going to be inclined to just play along. And if they don't want to, we're going to have the dungeons prepped to have a slightly different tone or theme or object to find. Maybe we do end up keeping the thing about there being, different items that can weaken a dragon to try and fight it. Maybe we do end up keeping that in the end and throwing those as possible rewards for completing the dungeons and stuff like that. So, maybe we'll do that. But really, I kind of want to stray away from that. I kind of want it to just be there's keys to this tower, and I kind of just want to describe that mirror of knowledge as important enough that really the goal for players is going to be they're going to want that mirror anyway, even if they don't want to help Eodris. So just in the process, they'll hope to get strong enough while finding the keys. And I'm willing to bet that most players will recognize that's the hook and they'll go with it. To a certain degree, you can't have every option in contingency plan planned for, since it's free form and players can really do whatever the hell they want, at least in terms of coming up with ideas. But most players, most people when they play a game, if there's someone who's inclined to play an RPG, like a role-playing game or something like that, they understand the concept of a call to action, right? A call to adventure. They understand the idea of that. So you don't really need to railroad them for the most part, because when you present the obvious bait, most players, I'm saying most because even by players that do that 9 times out of 10 will occasionally recognize it, and choose not to. But most of the time, players will recognize, hey, this is our call to adventure. If we want to play the game, this is what we're going to do. And that's why it's important to talk with your players beforehand to make sure they like the basic idea of a campaign, without giving them the answers. You can just say, for this one, I would say, how do you guys feel about a campaign takes place in plains, mountains, and forest, and includes a lot of treasure hunting, is what I would say. And the players are like, yeah, that sounds great. Then it's like, good, we can do that. And they'll recognize that that's what the campaign is. So I'm not super worried about having every single contingency plan there beyond just the idea of making sure we have a couple different end results of each dungeon, like final bosses and final treasures, based on whether they want to treasure hunt in cooperation with Eodris or treasure hunt in defiance of him. Those change things a little bit, but not the whole overarching thing. Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Moving on. Let's see here. So, sorry, just checking a couple things here. Okay. Just gonna give players the campaign of finding keys to the temple. And we have so we have the little basic thing there. Wait, let me make sure. Possess mirrors knowledge. Yeah, so we got that basic idea, that shrine there. We'll call that the shrine. So we'll call it that. So that's how this dungeon goes. Like they'll go in there, just exploring it out. It's like the first dungeon really isn't related to the thing at all, except that it just kind of gives them something fun to do before Eodris shows up. So, like I say, that's just kind of a introduce especially new players to how does D&D work, and are you ready to do some adventuring? You know, that's pretty much what that does. So, that's the first step. So, here's where I'm thinking I might do some drifting from what we had originally talked about. So we said players will need help from a scholar in Novotrikladny to identify either the key locations or items that can be used against Eodris. What I'm going to do, I'm going to keep that, but that's not a step per se. I want to change this up a little bit. And actually, I think this is going to work perfectly. I think this will work really, really well. Because I have some thoughts on how we can beef this up and get ourselves up to 10 steps so we can have 10 dungeons. So players will need help from Scholar and Novotrikladny to identify either key locations, or rather than saying the items, or ways to defeat Eodris. Scholar will need time and can provide locations one at a time. I'm going to leave that there, but actually what I think would be more fun is if you do like the do the classic thing where you find the key and that gives you a clue to the next key some way, shape, or form. The problem I have with that is I want this to feel more like the order of the keys is irrelevant. You know, they're just kind of going in the order that the scholar finds them. It feels a little less like, so you know, that first step is pretty convenient because as soon as I get to the end of the cave, then Eodris shows up and stuff happens. But I don't want every single step of this to feel like, you found the key. It turns out that was sequentially the first key because that contains clues to the next key. You know, like if I were going to do that, I would want to include each key has clues to the next 3 keys, and they could do it that way. But I think that's not how I want to approach this. Instead, what I want to do is I kind of want to keep that where it's like the scholar's like, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard about this legend. I guess there's some truth to it. Let me see what I can find. And the scholar will give things to them. So, what I want to do here, so first is on the mountaintops somewhere in the giant territory. That's where the first key is going to be. So we're going to say first, I just want to quickly change this to first key. It's on the mountaintops somewhere in giant territory. Locals know that giants exist, but there are rumors of friendlier tribe that lives along the river to the east. Players can try using survival checks and pathfinding to hunt for the item on their own, or can approach and work with the giants for help. So what I want to do is I kind of want to include, so we got three societies here. We have our giants, our Duergar, and our Drow. And I kind of want to turn each of those into 2 dungeons, where in some way for each of them there's the loyalty one. Not so much necessarily gaining loyalty, but getting to a point where they can move around in that area without constantly being hunted by these individuals. These different races and stuff like that. So what I want to do, what I think I want to do is have each one have one dungeon, which is like getting to that main city, right? And in doing so, some way, shape, or form, have it be like when they get there. So with the friendly tribe, right? The friendly tribe of giants, it's like they won't be inherently under attack. So for them, it's just a matter of navigating the mountains and getting to the end, right? And so they're just, you make the dungeon a complex mountain pass, right? So what I want to do is Scholar tells them first key is in the mountains. There is also vague knowledge around the village that there is a tribe of giants that is not known to be aggressive. Scholar suggests speaking to these giants to seek out I don't want to say alliance, to seek out I don't know, just peaceful let's see here. Seek out peaceful interactions and be allowed to search the mountains. As dungeon is just players navigating the mountain pass. So we just do that. Conclusion is making it through to the giant society, who does prove friendly, if a bit cautious and suspicious. So we'll do that. So that's like our level 2 dungeon. Then the level 3 dungeon. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna change to some of these notes here. Giants. Oh gosh, dang it! It's one thing that's kind of rough about this. When you delete when you're doing the outline format like I am, when you delete things, it can mess up the formatting sometimes. Let's see here. So what I want to do is I want to change this a little bit. I'm gonna change that. Okay. So now that time we can't get rid of it. Okay. First key is in the mountaintop somewhere in giant territory. Giants will know of a shrine deeper in the mountains. Mountains will warn that it is in less friendly giant territory. So for that dungeon, it'll kind of be like a two-parter, where it's like the first part is navigating through the region that has a lot of unfriendly giants that are not going to be thrilled about their presence. So like they'll go there, so they kind of have to navigate through those, and then the next step will be in the shrine itself, which will have certain protections and yada yada up in place. So that's how they get the first key, and then that takes care of 2 dungeons, right? And so we can kind of do that with all of them, right? So so we'll say players will return to Novotroicladny. Novotroiclad. No, it's not accepting the spelling there, but that's fine. All right. Players will return to Novotroicladny, where the scholar will have found the next clue for a we'll say deciphered. You spelled deciphered. Deciphered. Is that it? There it is. Haha, I figured it out. The scholar will have deciphered the enough of the next key location. The next key is with the Duergar. In the, let's see, we'll just say the next key is somewhere buried in the mountains that had once been possessed, that had once been, we'll say, the home of the dwarves. Nobody is aware that Duergar are now in possession. Are now in possession of the tunnels. So they'll have to do that, and so I'm trying to think about how the balance here would be. So I feel like what we can do here is we can have it be, what I'm thinking we'll do, scholar suggests making it to okay, here's where I want to pull up our map. We want our Q5 map. Yeah, because I think I've already named some of these places. So we can start adding some consistency in here. So here's our region. Right here, Cogdaral. So yeah, so he's going to suggest they make it all the way to Cogdaral. Because that was like formerly their capital city in the area. To Cogdaral. Is that how we spelled it? K-H, yeah, Cogdaral. To Cogdaral. Suggest making it to Cogdaral, the former capital, to look for more clues. Dungeon will be navigating the tunnels to get to the city, and then what we'll do is we'll say we'll end with them being captured by the Duergar. So that's their level 4, and then we're going to add another one in here. So for the level 5 dungeon, what I'm thinking we'll do is Duergar are suspicious of the players, but see an opportunity with them. The Duergar have been struggling to gain access to the old city vault that they believe houses all the old dwarven riches. They will allow the players to go free if they can gain access to the vault. Right, so that's like, so that's kind of, so that's what the mission is. The Duergar are like, hey, you know, okay, you're expendable. You go try and clear out the pathway to this vault and open up this vault. And if you do that, we'll let you go. So dungeon is navigating unreclaimed parts of the underground city to reach the vault. Within the vault is all sorts of wealth. Let's see. Within the vault is all sorts of wealth, including the key. Players may need to be careful and deceptive to get past the Durgar if they take anything. So like you can make this dungeon sort of like the final part of it is like the Durgar are going to be really suspicious that players are trying to take you know, monetary wealth and stuff from the vaults, and they're like, no, you're going for your freedom, not your own cash. So it's like you can have it be, you can probably do something like, actually, say the vault, and what we'll do here, Durgar, give players weapons and armor, but hold all money that was on the players, so they know if players take any cash from the vault. So it's like you can do that, so players might need to be a little sneaky and deceptive about it, you know. And that's something too that is easy enough to just not do if you don't want to be that mean and difficult to your players. But it's there. So yeah, there we go. Let's see here. And then, oh wait, we can get rid of this. I accidentally just created another one. So there we go. Okay, so there's the two with the Durgar. So we'll say players again return to the village to meet with the scholar, who then says the next clue suggests a key is suggests a key is kept somewhere in the Siski forest. So we've got our two first steps, and so this third step is going to the drow. And so now here's the one that's going to be a bit tougher. Got to try and think about this, because we've used just navigating a dangerous place for a dungeon. We've used we've used find a friendly society. We've used get captured. So we got to think about what's a good dungeon, a good additional dungeon for getting to the drow here that doesn't feel too repetitive. And I almost want to say I'm wondering, so here's where I think we can kind of do some fun stuff here. Here's where I think we can get some fun stuff going on. Scholar also knows that in the foothills of the plains the foothills of the mountains, was once a small village. Actually, I'm not even gonna say small village. It was once a city that had a teleportation circle with direct access to an old elven village in the forest. So that's what we'll do here, and then let's take this here. The forest. Scholar recommends going for the portal, since the key is supposedly kept in a shrine not far from dang it the very city that the portal links to. Dungeon is navigating this ghost city to find the portal. So there we go. So that's what it does. Let's see here. Portal takes them directly to the Elven city, which is now teeming with drow who aren't thrilled about the unannounced visitors. So, and I've got an idea for this. I've got a really fun idea for this one. So let's see. And what I want to do here is side mission opportunity. Let's see here. In this city, because this is right around the halfway point, right? So this is when they're at level 6. It's right around the halfway point where they're really starting to get into having some cool stuff. And it's a really reasonable time for them to start having some really cool magical items. So what I want to do here is, because we talked about how I don't have an enchanter in the city, but I wanted to put one there. So, side mission opportunity. Not far from the mountain foothills city, there is a tower that appears active. This is the home of a mad wizard whose memory was... I'm going to steal the idea. I forget who it was yesterday that said it, but someone in chat said yesterday the idea of having an NPC that has a goldfish memory, and every day their memory resets, like 51st Dates style, right? So, wizard whose memory was damaged during the unhinging and has been living there in a strange time warp where each day is the same to him. He is an enchanter that will happily make things for players. So it's like side mission is they can try and get to him and access him. Because what I want to do is I want to have, like, for each dungeon that's there, have like a mini dungeon that's like maybe half the size and intensity of the primary one, so that way they can have other opportunities to, one, do side missions that'll make them feel like there's kind of a bit more going on in this world than just what they're doing for their quest, but also as a way to let them compensate for any experience points they miss if they're not into doing the whole Skyrim style, like meticulously check every nook and cranny to kill every enemy and empty out every dungeon, right? If they don't want to do that, you want to give them enough opportunity to make up for that and get experience points. The other way too, just as a note, the other way to combat that, if that's how your players are going to play and you're worried that the game just doesn't have enough experience for them, you can, if you don't want to force them to like have to kill enough stuff or die, like if you don't want to force that choice, you can always use milestone leveling up. And whenever they finish one of these dungeons that we're writing right now, you know, whenever they finish one of these ones, you just give them and say like, okay, you've now earned enough that you are up to this level, you know, and you just level them up regardless. That's kind of the way you can do it. So, yeah, so you have those options there. I prefer to like make it. I prefer to actually do experience points rather than landmark or milestone, because it'll force them to sort of make decisions about. You know, it kind of forces players to think about, oh, are we actually ready for this? You know, if they encounter something, because it's possible for them then to move on before they're ready. And if that happens, that kind of makes them, that'll give them pause and make them say like, oh, I don't know if we are actually ready for this. And then they have to kind of think about, okay, what do we do? Do we try and force our way through this anyway and just take lots of long rests? Or do we take off go back and take care of something else in the meantime, and that's when you offer the side quests and stuff. And I actually do want to go through. So, and actually, the way I'm gonna do this is just to make it a bit more obvious. And we'll do this. Will serve as the enchanter that isn't in the city. Because what we can say is, like, they'll find, oh, there's a teleportation circle, or they can talk with him and make a deal to make a teleportation circle or whatever. Which then would also create all kinds of fun hijinks, because he's got a goldfish memory, so he won't remember making the teleportation circle. And so if they just appear randomly, he'll be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" And like he'll freak out, and I think that's funny. So, okay, so that's step number 6, which means now we got to do number 7, which is now going to be what to do when they're found by the drow. Okay, so this step starts as soon as players show up in the middle of a drow city. Let's see here. So we'll say the drow won't immediately imprison them, but will certainly question. And so I feel like, so we talked about how the drow are going to have a lot of political infighting in between houses. And so I think we can use that to sort of make an interesting dungeon, an interesting sort of complex dungeon here. During interrogation, however, another drow clan will attack the city, turning the city into a dangerous war zone. So let's see. And so what we can say here is, we can say, quote, dungeon is the city during fighting. Players may have extra drow to fight depending on how the interrogation goes. If it went badly, we'll say if it went badly, both clans will try and kill the players. And we'll just keep it simple. So it's like, and what we can do is we can do, let's see here, if things went, let's say, actually, we'll just turn those into 2 sentences, because we'll do, if it went badly, clans will try and kill the players. If things went well, they will ignore the players and let them move about freely. Challenge of this dungeon is they'll have to first find the clues about the shrine location itself, then get to the shrine, and then Dungeons of the Dungeons, they'll have to first find the clues about the shrine location itself, then get to the shrine, and then make it through to the key. So it's like this. So like, what's happening here, and what I hope is kind of clear. The way I'm trying to do this also is, the further they get, the deeper they get, the more complicated these dungeons are going to be, right? The earlier dungeons are just like, hey, make it to the end and you succeed, right? But then they get to the Duergar, and it's like, okay, now it's like you get to the end, but you also kind of have to fight your way out in a sense, depending on how much money you try to steal, you know, well you're able to convince them that you didn't take anything, including that key, right? And then by the time they get to the drow, it's like, oh shit, we're in the middle of an actual war, and so we have to somehow get through this combat area of a city, find what we're trying to find, and then get it, and then get out in the middle of a war, essentially, is what they'll have to do. So it's like we're adding more and more complexity to things, which is good for two reasons. One, it makes the campaign continue on, right? Because you don't want a campaign. It's always I always feel like it's a bummer when you try to plan a campaign that's supposed to span 10 levels, but then players kind of, supposed to span 10 levels, and then 2 months into it, all of a sudden they're at the conclusion. It's like, oh, well, that was kind of short-lived, right? This is a campaign. This is a campaign intended for a long-lasting group. This is a long-lasting campaign. This is not a one-shot. That's for damn sure. But that's how I like my campaigns. I like my campaigns to last nice and long, because it's always easy to cut things out or fast-forward time to get players a conclusion if for some reason a group is coming to an end. But if you do have a really good group, let it last, right? Let it keep going. And so that's how I like to design my things. I like to make these things feel epic, because that's the other thing that adding this complexity does, is it really starts making things feel much more intense, much more like, oh shoot, we need to use, they're gaining more tools, but it's not just more tools that make everything easier. It's more tools because we need more tools, right? They're leveling up, getting more stuff. But they have to do more stuff. They have to accomplish more stuff. There's more role playing. There's more complexity to all of this, and so their tools are going to become more and more necessary and helpful, because they're entering situations that feel like, they can feel good about, oh, we would have never succeeded at this at level 1. It's good that we're leveling up and progressing, right? And so it makes them feel accomplished. It makes them feel like heroes. So this is good stuff. This is good stuff. So now for our last step here, fourth. So the fourth is going to be the Lakeside Cave, and that's the one where I actually really like this one. So it's we're giving them this campaign where it's okay, so they're starting off down here, right? There's that cave that they're going to encounter. That's the first step. Then they're going to go up here. Then they have to travel along through here and then get there, right? And then they have to travel through... they have to travel along, and this is going to be a long one. It'll include travel, because I'll probably have the entrance to it. They'll be able to learn about the entrance to the caves being around here. Then they got to go underground to get to Kagnaral. Then they have to travel all the way back, and then they have to travel all the way down there. They get teleported here, and they're really isolated at that point in time. So they feel like they're just spanning out further and further, going to every corner of the map, going all over the place. And then suddenly the last one is oh shit, it's right over there. So they can just go there. And what I want to do with this one is actually I want to give them sort of a fake breather, so to speak. So fourth is in a Lakeside Cave, not in anyone's territory, but filled with nasties. I like that exactly as it is. There's no extra thing. There's no extra society. Nothing. There's just this cave. But it's oh, well, that's great. And then they'll get into it. And I'm actually going to take away this stuff. So they're just so it's not anyone's territory, filled with nasties. This will be a long and grueling cave to have to make it through, we'll say by design. It was really meant to protect everything. This was... So it's you can have the legend, and so I'm going to have to write up some sort of legend or something for it. And what I think I'll do is make it so that the legend of this tower was yeah, we'll give 3 keys, one each. We'll give one to the giants, one to the Duergar, or one to the dwarves, and one to the elves, right? Because now it's the drow and the Duergar kind of took over, but it's we'll give these keys to them for them to safe hold. But then, this last key, none of them will even know about it. The 4th key will be there, and the only people that know about it are the people that built the shrine and protected it. who are now long gone forever, right? That's kind of what they did. They did that on purpose, and so they guarded it really tightly and heavily. So this will be a long and grueling cave to have to make it through by design. So now the one challenge here is we need to add one more step here. We have to add one more step, and I'm trying to think about how to pull it together, because what I want to do is I do want to, in the end, I want to use the Leonins, right? We took the time to create the concept of the Leonins, and I want to somehow use them, but I don't know that I want to use them as enemies. So I think what I want to do, I got to think about how I want to do this, because I want to use the plains. That's like the one part of it that we really haven't used. And so I somehow want to make one final dungeon that goes through the plains, because then the final dungeon is going to be our shrine, which is just going to be a goddamn, Mad Mage style dungeon that's just going to have floors upon floors, or whatever, going down or up or whatever. There's just going to be so many layers to it is what I want to do. So it really feels like a final gauntlet for players to have to overcome. But I kind of want to make the trip to get there a challenging thing, and what I want to do is say, so once the players have all of the keys, so once the players have all of the keys, the final step will be we'll say the final journey is what we'll say, because the final step is the actual shrine itself. So the final journey is making it to the shrine. Let's see here. I'm gonna just put here, side note. If players get snippy about Eodris not just taking the keys. Oh, what is going on here? Why is my thing freaking out? I hate when it does that. Sometimes it freaks out like that. Players get snippy. If players get snippy about Eodris not taking the keys to the shrine himself, or about him not taking them by flight, hand wave it by having Eodris say he wants to know that they are willing to put in the effort of maintaining peace and this alliance, so they have to prove their worth, or whatever. It's flimsy. It's super flimsy. But all we're trying to do is, like, we're trying to hand wave the same way that Tolkien did about the Eagles, right? Because everyone's always like, why didn't the Eagles take him? It's like, because you wouldn't have a story. Like, fuck off. You wouldn't have a story. I'm sorry that it existed. They were doing their own thing. I don't know. And that's kind of what it is here. So it's like, well, why doesn't the dragon just take us? Because, like, fucking, do you want the payoff to be like, oh, you found the keys, bye? No, you want something really climactic and ending, where the ending isn't just like some dragon takes the keys and flies away and it's like, okay, end campaign, you did it. Whatever. It's like, no. Get yourselves to that mirror and witness the splendor of the mirror with Eodris or something like that, right? Have it be like a pact earned through shared trials, something like that. It's like, fuck off, players. So we'll add that there. So once players have all the keys, the final journey is making it to the shrine. And so what I think I want to do is the dungeon is a challenging journey through the oops, through the plains, making it from one Leonin settlement to the next, with each settlement pointing them in the proper direction, but offering no help beyond a place to sleep if the players need it. And we'll say each leg will have some unique challenge involved. We'll have some unique challenge involved that reflects the dangers of the wilds, exemplifying why the Leonins choose not to accompany the players. So it's like, that's really flimsy, and when we get to writing it, it's going to take some time to really think about how we're going to make that a compelling journey for the players, something that feels worth their time. But just, for our basic ideas, we can just say, like, yeah, it, like, each leg of the journey, excuse me, however many legs there are and however long each one is going to be, each leg of that journey is just basically like, yeah, it's really dangerous. That's why the Leonins are like, that's where you got to go. Good luck. And let them just go. Because Leonins are like, we're not going through that shit. Like, we're not going to face down all of those dangers and trials and tribulations and all that shit. Like, that's on you guys. You guys were the ones hired to do this. You do it. Right? So again, a bit more hand waving, but it sort of explains things while offering them the dungeon. And so the hard part is going to be finding a way to make it other than just like a whole bunch of random shit hits them while they walk in a straight line, right? That'll be the challenging part to figure out. But we'll navigate that when we get to it, I think. Because actually, this process is taking a lot longer than I thought it would today. We'll still start the first dungeon, but I doubt we'll actually complete a full dungeon today. But that's fine. Who cares, man? We're just taking our time and trying to make this really a good, compelling thing. And so then, here we go. The final step is entering the shrine. If cooperating with Yodris, and we'll fight a monstrosity. And so what I'm going to do here, and here's what I'm going to do. If cooperating with Yodris, and I'm going to do ... tab this. Let's say we'll have knowledge of shrine location from the dragon, and that like still kind of makes sense, and that's how they know where to start the step beforehand, right? We'll have knowledge location from Eodris. Eodris will let's see here. We'll meet them there. When they first use, so we'll say there when they first use the keys to, let's see here. Final step is entering the shrine. The keys must be used in sequence. So the keys must be used in sequence, with the first being to get in and the last being to enter the final chamber with the mirror. And so by setting up these tiered doors, see what there's a reason I'm doing this. And you'll see here. Cooperating with Yodris will have knowledge of the shrine location from Yodris. Actually, I'm just gonna get rid of that, and I'm gonna put that. Oh my gosh, this thing is freaking out on me right now. So I'm gonna get rid of that part because we're gonna put that there. Let's see here. If cooperating Eodris tells them the location. If not, Scholar gives them general direction, and they will find the first step that way. The challenge, proper direction, there's needed. If players are not cooperating with Eodris, instead the settlements will deny access, and players will have to use navigation to figure out the right ways to go. So we can like have it almost be like maybe there's like a honeycomb network of sorts of where the settlements are, and so it's like if they're cooperative, the settlements will show them like the quickest, easiest route that will have them sort of go through the simpler, easier legs of the journey and fewer of them. But if not, they'll just have to kind of eeny, meeny, miny, moe their way through or something like that is what we can set that up for. So there we go. Okay, I wanted to put that there. Eodris will meet them there. So if cooperating with Eodris will meet them there. When they first use the keys to open the shrine, the monstrosity will burst out, and Eodris will distract it so that the players can enter. And begin the dungeon. So basically what it'll be is monstrosity will burst out, and they won't have to deal with it, and that'll give an excuse for why Eodris is not just going through the dungeon with them as it is, right? And so that's what it is. And so if cooperating, enter the dungeon. When they make it to the final chamber, the monstrosity will reappear, having been injured by Eodris. Will reappear, and players will have to fight it. We'll say Eodris is injured outside the shrine, but will be aided by Leonins, who followed. Here we go. This is like super clever shit right here where we're coming up. Who followed in the wake of the path that the players carved for safe approach. Boom. There we go. So it's like that's how we can kind of hand wave why Eodris will not help them with the final boss battle, right? But why he also isn't just like dead. There we go. Bada bing, bada boom. We figured it out. Let's see here. So if fighting Eodris. So if fighting Eodris, let's see. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? Fighting Eodris, he will confront them right after they are, we'll say actually right as they are about to unlock the first door. When the first door is inevitably opened, we'll say role play away a fight with Eodris right now. Actually, we'll say, at this time is how we'll say it. All right. So when the door is inevitably opened, the monstrosity will attack Eodris, giving players a chance to sneak in. When players get to the final chamber, Eodris will appear, having killed the monstrosity, and will be ready to try and kill the players. Boom. There we go. So there's our clever two-part ending there. That's how we can kind of cleverly design this around whether or not players are cooperating with or working against Eodris, our wonderful dragony friend here. And I actually think this is a really cool setup here, and actually a really good progression for this campaign. I'm actually really excited about this. I think these are really good steps, really clear steps that have very obvious applicability to a dungeon. The one exception really being step 9, which I may revisit and change a little bit, just to make it a more definitive dungeon in some way, shape, or form. But ultimately, I think what we've set up here is going to be really, really good. I think it's going to be really good. And I'm stoked about it. I'm really stoked about this. I think this is going to be really fun. So now here's what I want to do here. I'm going to just add in really quickly here. We're going to insert... oops, no, that's not what I want to do. That's not how I want to do it. We want to do... hold on. New page below. There we go. I'm going to do this, but I'm going to promote the subpage, and we're just going to say the campaign elements. That's what I want to do right here. So now these... Okay, so these are all just placeholders here. We may or may not need these depending on how we do the storage, how we do the dungeons and everything for the campaign. We may or may not need these. We're gonna keep these placeholders there for now, but we may or may not need them because we do have the history and stuff. Remember, we made that a while back, and we have that in our factions and our foes and friends. So we already have that stuff made up. It's just not stored in the atlas because it's not actually locational information. That's all background information. And so we have it if we need it. And we may or may not need these actual we put these here. And so we had the drow bosses if you might fight the drow boss, which may or may not be a thing. We may or may not actually need the lairs for these individuals. Like the Runt tribe, right? That's our giant tribe. We don't actually have it set up where they're going to fight the giant boss himself. For the drow and the Duergar, we may still be able to end up using those, or we may still want to have those prepped per se, but I don't know that we're really going to need to. Hall of Wisdom will definitely be there, and the Waterfall Dungeon, those ones will definitely be good. Get a better name. I was being quite rude to myself there. Alright, so now we're going to insert here. Whoops, no, we're going to go home. We're going to do, where was it? New page below, right there. And then we're going to make that one a sub-page there. So that way it all just, that's just for the sake of visual organization. I almost wish they would tab these in a little bit more so it was even more obvious. But we can do it that way. And actually what we want to do is we want to take our dungeon template. We're going to copy that. And paste that. Oh, that's not at all what I thought was going to happen. Probably because I need to copy it this way. Copy, and we can paste it there. And let's go ahead and delete that page, actually. So dungeon template. So this is going to be, we're just going to do campaign opening cave. Is we're just gonna call it there. It's an unnamed cave. It's just there to give us a reason for our players to be here and start playing the game is really all it is. So campaign opening cave, and we're going to say level 1 for this one because it's going to be a level 1 cave. Now the way I do my dungeons is, and so here's how you can see things are really going to turn into mega dungeons by the time we get to the end. The way I do my dungeons is I do a set of 10 rooms for each level. So for level 1, there's going to be 1 set of 10 rooms. For level 2, there are going to be 2 sets of 10 rooms. Until we get to level 10, which there will be 10 sets of 10 rooms. So by the time we get to level 10, there are going to be 100 rooms in this mega dungeon. It's going to be a huge mega dungeon. That's how I do things. You know, I like to present things because the one thing is some players will absolutely adore that. They will love how huge that is, and they will want to explore every little bit of it. And other players will be like, I'm not interested in doing this, and for them it'll be about trying to navigate and find clues that will get them through the fastest. And that's sort of how I like to try and design these things, is so that there are clues and hints and ways that you can expedite. There are, like, you know, shortcuts that can be taken. I like to try and make those dungeons complex enough that there are shortcuts to be taken. There's a most direct route, and there are clues about what's the most direct route. You know, I almost like to design my dungeons in a Legend of Zelda approach, right? Where it's like you can find the map and you can find the compass and you can find these little things that'll make navigating the dungeon easier and more direct, right? And so, and then with all of the extra rooms and chambers and floors even, you know, they might be able to skip entire room sets, right? And like skip down multiple floors. You can skip that stuff at the expense of the experience you would gain. But that's why we then add in, you know, throughout the travel, they'll gain experience by having random encounters with things. I usually will offer up players an equivalent amount of experience for having really good role-playing situations. If they can role-play their way through a problem, if they can clear out a trap, I'll usually give them some sort of experience. So that way they can afford to miss some of the battles and miss some parts of it because there will be plenty of other experience. Because when I offer up the experience into a dungeon, it's really just if they kill every monster, they will get all the experience they need to level up. And they'll get pretty much exactly the experience they need to level up. So if you then offer other ways to get experience on top of that, it really will be pretty easy for them to get everything they need, even if they don't explore every nook and cranny. And because of the way leveling progresses, if they do sort of like over experience themselves and over level themselves, the degree to which they'll over level themselves, like it kind of grows exponentially, at least to a certain point, how much experience they need to level up. So it will eventually taper off. So it's not like they're going to just like still be at the level 4 dungeon and be level 20 or something like that, right? Because the experience amount increases up until it's like, I think it's like once you reach level 15 or something like that, then the amount of experience you need in between levels kind of levels off. Because at that point in time, you're kind of considered to be like, yeah, you're like champions, you know, there's, you know, it just, yeah, at this point in time, you're kind of, the rate at which you increase kind of like tapers off or whatever. But yeah, for like levels 1 through 10, you can just kind of go for it. At any rate, we've only got 15 minutes left. So what I think I want to do is we're just going to go ahead and make ourselves a little bit of a map. We're just going to have some fun making a layout here. So I always do my 32 by 24. And it's been a while since I've explained why I do that size. I always do that size because, one, it's a good size for about 10 rooms, right? You can have a good, comfortable 10 rooms for a combat, for a dungeon there. Some of the rooms will be kind of cramped. Some of them will be a bit bigger. But 10 rooms is good, and this is a good size for 10 rooms. And the other reason I do it that way is because if I'm in person with my players and hand drawing out, like doing a hand-drawn version of these maps that we create, I have a board that is 2 by 3 feet. And so, you know, if you have a, you know, and since I'm American and we operate in feet, right, it's 12 inches to a foot. So 24 by 36 ends up being exactly, you know, 30, or hold on, yeah, I have that wrong. It should be by 36. No wonder it's always been looking weird to me for a while. 24 by 36 is the size of the board, right? I've been doing it. I did it smaller, a little bit smaller for the sake of the shops, because you don't need it to be as big for just a shop. But yeah, so like this is all the space that I have to work with for a dungeon. And that's all there is to it. That's the reason I do it this way. So, at any rate, let's go ahead and make a cave here. And the fun part is we can use our cave brush here. And the first thing to do is let's just make 10 rooms. We don't really need to be all that thoughtful about how we lay this one out, honestly. We can just kind of make this a random cave. It's just kind of meant to be a cave for them to explore and clear out. That's what their job is. That's what their task is here. So we can just kind of do one. Now, there's one thing I do have to do with this tool. So I'm using Dungeon Draft here. And so what I'm going to have to do here is I have to save this now. I have to save a copy of this now. So we're going to say... what was I calling this? The frickin' opening. We'll call it the opening cave level 1. Alright, we'll just do it that way. Although I gotta... Sorry, you guys can't see what I'm doing here. I try to hide my actual file system just because I keep a lot of financial records and stuff, and I don't want to ever accidentally open up my folders and dox myself or anything. So we're gonna say that opening cave level 1. It's like our first act. I have to save this frequently because the cave tool, for some reason, causes Dungeon Draft to crash a lot. So it may crash and we may have to reopen it. So after every room, I make a habit of saving it. So we need to make 10 rooms. 1, we can just kind of make a random size. 2, save. All right, 3, save that. Small right there. 4. Let's do 5. 6. I'm just kind of making things randomly. 7. Save that. 8. We'll do 9 like that. And then we'll just like maybe a small one right there. 10. There we go. So there's our 10 rooms. So now I'm going to just shrink the size of this down a little bit. So now we just connect them. And for caves, the way I always find that makes it easiest to make caves feel kind of, good is just like connect each one with whatever the closest one is, and that'll make it kind of a fun little network labyrinth that may or may not have multiple connections. Like I might put an extra connection there, right? But then this one closest is to do that. Let's do that. Oh, I should save. So we do that, and then this one, the closest is like right there. So we'll save that. Save that, or put that right there. There we go, save it. And then for this one, I think the closest connection is to do it that way. Like that right there. There we go, and there's a network, right? There's a good network for the players to explore, and then because it's just so close right there and it doesn't really matter, we'll have that be our cave entrance. And there we go. It's perfect right there. Oh, okay. So we got like 12 minutes. We can do a bit more with this. So there's our cave. There's a couple different routes for them to explore. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger, just that way it's like obvious that players can get through there. The cave kind of makes it a little awkward with the grid system, especially when your characters snap to it. So I just try to always make sure that the grid system will allow for players to move through without bumping into walls per se. So like this one, I think I'll open that one up because then they've got 2 they can go through there. See, like this one, we kind of want to open that up a little bit. So then they've got a network of thing they can go to. I think if we do that, that's good there. That's good. I see this one might give them trouble. So you do just that a little bit. There we go. Perfect. That one's good. Okay, I think all of them are good now. Oh, this one might need to be opened up just a bit. There we go. Okay, I think we've got pathway. I might do just that to make sure. I think that should be good. Okay, all right, there we go. So we're going to save that, right? And so there's our entranceway there. And so now, just for the sake of... These aren't necessarily going to coincide with anything. but I want to put little numbers up by each of these rooms, so that way when we're going back into OneNote, hey, Lunar, be prepared. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're here. But yeah, so I'm gonna put little numbers here, just so that way once we go in and start actually making the notes for what each of these rooms are, we have an easy way as a DM to just go through, so this doesn't lock us into any room necessarily being any particular thing. This just gives us something to organize and pay attention to. And it doesn't really even matter which room gets numbered what. It's all irrelevant because it'll just match up with whatever we put in our OneNote notebook. But we put these there. 9 and then 10 is our entryway, really. So we put those right there. That's good. We need that. Now let's go ahead and... So one thing that I always do, what I've started doing... So the way this I'm using Dungeon Draft, and I use that in conjunction with Foundry Virtual Tabletop for online games, because the groups that I have, I try to do in person as much as I can, but a lot of groups play online too. So I always design things to be able to be played online, and then I can just like hand draw and transfer it over onto like my game board or whatever for in-person sessions. But I always try to make things prepared here. So now one thing that I love about Foundry is the fact that it handles dark vision. It handles dark vision and line of sight in real time with your players. So it's like if in a cave as a baseline, unless they take torches, I would prefer as DM to just leave the rooms dark, so it's like they would have to go there and have their torch, otherwise they're in trouble. However, my players find that very frustrating, just because depending on how things are programmed and set up, it will make it so they can't, since they can't see all of the map, right, since the map is all hidden, they can get frustrated with that, because sometimes the map will disappear from them, and so it's like they're kind of stuck in this situation where they, as players, can't remember where they've been from week to week, even, you know, so even though their players probably, or their characters would remember. So understanding that and taking that to heart, what I do is I leave the line of sight stuff as it is. So if they're in this room, they can't see that there's enemies there. They can't see that there's enemies around the corner. And that's still kind of frustrating to them. But then when I put my foot down and I'm like, hey, you can't see what's there. Like, your player has to decide what they can do based on what they can and can't see. You know, figure it out. But in concession, what I'll do is for caves and dark locations, I'll just put one central light in the middle of each room, right? So it's like there are still dark crevices and dark corners of each room. So there's still sort of that element of you can't see very well, but as a baseline, it makes it so that all players can kind of, or like all characters can kind of see regardless of what the dark vision situation is. And that also makes sense to me because I have never been with a group that just allowed a character to deal with not being able to see. They always cast some sort of spell or make sure they have torches. Because why the fuck wouldn't you? Those things are so available and so easy to use in D&D rule sets. Why the fuck wouldn't you? Right? It makes the most sense ever to just do that kind of stuff. So I always put just essential light there, just to give them stuff, to, the ability to generally see the room. But, you know, as you can see, it still had some interesting stuff because this corner is still going to be darker. That little area is going to be darker right there, which makes that hall kind of dark, right? And so it still kind of gives some challenge to it. So it's like, oh, yeah, no, this is a particularly dark tunnel. How do you approach it? You know, it kind of turns it into a mini trap or puzzle for players while still primarily acquiescing and giving them that line of sight that they so desperately crave. God, players wanting to see where they are and shit. So needy. And then the last thing I'm going to do here, I think we got time to do this pretty easily. I'm just going to go to cave for our stuff here. So we've got a bunch of stuff here. And I'm just going to fill in some stuff just to make it a bit more aesthetically pleasing. I'm also going to, actually, before I do that, I'm going to go to our water brush here. And we're just going to add some water in some of these corners just to make things a bit more interesting. Right? We'll just do that. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a little bit more careful about this just because I can be. And I don't want things to overlap over there. Because if it overlaps outside the walls, sometimes that messes also with players' line of sight and stuff like that, which isn't super fun to do. It's not super fun to have to deal with that because players will start asking questions and shit. They'll start asking questions and wanting explanations, and I don't want to give them explanations. Needy little assholes. Damn it. Undo. Hold on. We can even, like, just, like, make the thing small. That's going to hang over just a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it. And watch this. We can almost do, like, an underwater pond or something. It's like a puddle, but it stretches out because we got a bigger room, so we can afford to do that. Right, you do stuff like that, and then maybe this room also has a whole lot going on with it. And we can, like, kind of make it interesting by going all along there. Filling that all in. Just like that, and then I'm going to put just a little bit right there, that little overhang there. But yeah, you do kind of like that, and so there we go. There. So we got some water elements there just to make it so it's like, yeah, there's like water and puddles and stuff that show up in a cave. I don't know. It's thematic and elemental in a way. Looks all right. We'll call it good there. And then, yeah, we got 4 minutes. We can throw down just some of these objects. All we're going to do, I'm not even going to put any. Sometimes in caves, I'll put a lot of like, I'll do like mining equipment and stuff because it's one of the most common uses for caves. But I really want this to just be a natural cave. So we're just going to do. Oh, they've got holes. How about that? A cave hole? I love that. A giant hole, like, right in the middle. Oh, my God, that would be really funny. I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to put, like, a hole over here. And so players can just do that. And hopefully I'll remember that's a hole so we can add some details to it. But really what I want to do is we're going to just take some of these crystals and just kind of, like, I guess that was a little big for what I want. Just plop some of them down here. I may or may not incorporate them into, like, you know, descriptions. Actually, I want to unsnap this from the grid. I may or may not incorporate the crystals into, like, something that is, like, findable and interactable. I might just have them be like, yeah, no, they're just crystals. As far as you can tell, they're, like, pretty worthless. They're just formations in the cave, right? So you throw a couple of those down. And one thing you can also do is, you know, you can put them in the water a little bit there too, you know. Do that, and then also just occasionally to make things more interesting, you throw in a little bit of like rubble that'll make things a bit narrower or make them worry that like parts of the cave are gonna collapse in, right? You can put like a pile of rubble right by that door, just like that. Grab one of these piles and you just set like this pile. And almost put that like right there. You could also grab some of our stalagmites and stalactites, right, and put like a little outcropping of those there. Maybe put one of those like against the wall over there. This just gives it a little texture. This really isn't anything functional. This is really just meant to be, like I say, adding some texture, making it feel a bit more lively than just like big rooms with narrow tunnels. And then, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Close that out. I was meant to hit control, not the Windows button. There we go. Okay. So yeah. So now we got a dungeon. We got a cave that's got some texture to it. Gonna save our progress there. And with 2 minutes left on the stream time, I think that's an excellent place to call it a stream for the day. We actually made some really good progress. We've really got a solid map of where our campaign is going to go. And we got at least a bit of a start on our first level 1 dungeon, which is super fun and exciting. I'm super stoked about this. I'm really excited to be at this part. Like I say, it's by far the biggest and most involved step, but making the dungeons and campaign elements really is actually the final step, the way I design things. So we've got all of the groundwork, and now we just get to do the fun stuff, the really fun stuff of making dungeons, putting monsters in them, putting treasures and traps in them, and I am stoked about it. I'm excited about it. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this. So, to anyone who stopped by, I know it was a smaller crowd today. That tends to happen on Fridays. People are off doing other things, especially a Friday before a holiday weekend. But that just makes me all the more appreciative of those of you who stopped by. Thank you to the new followers. I appreciate all of you. And to the old followers. I love all of you guys. But yeah, thank you for everyone who stopped by. I had fun just sitting here writing. I always have fun sitting here just doing some writing. I think it's really fun, and I'm just eternally flattered and grateful that there are people that are interested in what I'm making. Coming up, I'm going to take like a 15-minute break like I always do, but coming up I actually am doing my video game streaming. We have started Mass Effect 3, and we are going to continue that run through. And I'm super excited about that too, just getting to sit and play some video games. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned or come back in like 20 minutes and I'll be on starting our Mass Effect 3 play for the day. Or if you're just here for the writing stuff, then by all means, go find something else. There's a lot of good D&D content out there. Go find someone else who's making stuff. I think that's totally respectable, and I think it'd be awesome if you went and found someone else who's a small streamer like me to go support. So, either way, again, thank you so much for joining me, and yeah, we're at the end of the week. Next week, I expect I will be streaming on Monday. And next week, I know I'll be streaming. I should be streaming Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I will not be streaming on Wednesday or on Friday. Next week, Friday, I'm actually leaving to go on a training retreat with my kickboxing gym, which I'm super stoked about. We're traveling up north to another gym, and we're going to do some cross-training with them for a long weekend. And it's going to be super fun. I'm super excited about it. But I'll be leaving on Friday, which means I will not be around to stream. So, next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, most likely. That could change, but... Oh, and of course, I do have my Discord. So if you want to, join a small but growing community of people who like to talk about D&D homebrew and writing and just share memes and stuff in general, feel free to join that. If that's not your jam, then that's not your jam. I'm cool with that either way. Just options for you to enjoy. But that's finally all of my announcements. Thank you for joining me for writing. I appreciate you. If you're sticking around, I'll see you in like 15-20 minutes. If not, I will maybe see you next week or whenever the next time you decide to stop by is. Either way, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I'm excited to see you next time. All right. Take care now.